Well, it means three issues. First of all, that it is the content of the legislation is in line with the international best practices and domestic laws. Two, it means that the processes of how this is developed and how it's implemented is consistent, and the third one is how the practice of implementation is in line with what is written by the good standards in the law. So I think that these three must be always looked together. So if we talk about the first, we see situations where governments will adopt legislation to justify or regulate a field to fit within their own purposes, but not necessarily be in line with what is the standard for it or what is the actual need of the society. So when we look at whether the environment is enabling, we normally measure vis-a-vis these international standards and what the CSO or the citizen asks are about that area, whether it is about basic freedoms of association or about some issues regarding the development of the civil society through public funding or policy work. The second issue we see is that enabling is when the government does not always change the law very quickly, or when it does change the law, then it does consult the sector or other stakeholders which are affected by it. And so there is a certain level of legal certainty in how the legislation and practice are being implemented. And the third is the practice. We see that there are most violations in the areas of implementation because either there is lack of understanding or lack of will. Here we measure enabling when we see that what the practice is actually in line with the good provisions in the legislation. I think it's very important for the civil society to understand all the, to help prepare its own ground, to be active and influence when the moment comes, when the opportunity comes. So we look at areas where the civil society can work on its own capacities, and it can, for example, for how to engage in policy dialogue when the government doesn't want to allow for policy dialogues, right? So how we can actually mobilize the people around us, or how we can improve our capacity to actually write or comment or to be present in a credible way. Or, for example, when we are working in areas of, let's say, philanthropy, the government doesn't want to deal with us and doesn't want to give us tax benefits, we can still turn to the individuals or companies and try to work out strategies with them on how we can inspire them to help us. You can still, well, I mean, it depends on the issues, right? But for example, when the issue is of such an importance, you can try to, first of all, get together as a sector or as a stakeholders group that you're affected by and try to voice it out very strongly. Of course, you can protest about it, but also sometimes it helps that you can find actors who have leverage, either international organizations or intergovernmental organizations who can support your cause and try to, try to negotiate or try to work with the government to bring up, to help open that door for the sector. We see that oftentimes we will have situations when the governments will consult groups who are closer to them, and they will say that yes, we did consultation, even though they have marginalized those who are really important in the process. And it's also for the sector, it's also important to actually speak about those cases and to point out to those cases, to not allow for legitimization of the policy or the law even when it is adopted.